What's up, YouTube? It's Joe Catchpolia sitting on the couch making some money investing in fractional real estate online, as usual. And actually, today I want to do something a little bit different. Want to talk about I've been talking a lot about the how of investing on platforms like Ground Floor and Lofty, and more recently Mogul as well. But today I want to talk a little bit more about why I'm spending the time on this, and then who I think these sites can benefit. Um, if you haven't watched any of my videos, I've been an investor for almost 20 years. I've been a real estate agent on and off for just about that whole time as well. Over the last several years, I've worked exclusively for investors as an agent, helping them find properties. And I have a small team of agents who help me with that here in San Antonio, Texas. And, I end up getting a lot of investors, and almost all of them are out of state or out of country, who come to me and want to get started in real estate and maybe don't have the capital to do it yet. And that's who I initially thought that's going to be the right person to for sites like this. But the more I've got into it and thought about it, I think there's really two other groups of people who it could be good for as well. But so, I think the first one's pretty obvious, right? Like if you don't have the money, if you're interested in real estate, um, I think especially I think both Lofty and Mogul, might make some sense. Mogul does some just really um, what I consider, high level, like some really good analysis that you can tell that they have an institutional real estate background by the way that they put things together. Um, And so I think there's a lot to be learned from investing on their site and in some of their properties. Now, for all of these sites, before you put any money on, you need to do your own due diligence. I've only been on Mogul for, uh, they've only had my money for a couple of weeks, I think. So this is the one I'm the newest on. I've been really impressed with, the properties they pick and their projected returns, but I haven't received any actual returns from them yet. So that, keep that in mind. But I do really like the way that they present. It is, I think, of all the platforms that I've looked at, I looked at Arrived and Landa, Arc 7, really any of them. This seems to be the one where, they really have focused on presenting the analysis for the properties well. And I think they're actually also one of the platforms that they've done what appears to be a really good job of actually picking high performing properties. There doesn't appear that they're going for volume at all. They're picking very few properties. Um, and maybe at the moment it's because it's a capital constraint. I don't know for sure. But when you look at what they have versus what's on a lot of the other platforms, it seems like they're being more selective anyway. So I think whether or not I actually make the money it looks like I will on there, I don't know, but I think that there's definitely a lot to be learned from spending some time looking at the way they look at properties. I think you can learn a ton if you get on Lofty, buy a few tokens in a few different properties, spend some time in the Discord, read all the governance votes, get involved in those. I think there's a ton to learn about real estate investing while also making some money. This one I'm a little bit more comfortable saying that you can make money because I have already. But I think it's definitely, you have to really pay attention to everything going on with the properties. You have to do due diligence, like we've been talking about in all the videos that I've done, both on the platform, that, looking at everything they present to you, but also doing what other due diligence you can, looking at third party websites, looking at government websites, everything you can do to sort of find out more about, what the asset is that you're investing your money in. So I think there's that opportunity. Um, Ground floor, I'm not really, I don't think if you're trying to get into just investing in that, if you're that person, I don't think that makes the most sense. But then I guess it's a good segue into, who are the other people I think it makes a lot of sense for, right? Some of these platforms. I think somebody like me who's been investing in real estate in the real world um, has a sort of concentrated risk to where I've always just invested where I've lived. And so When I lived in College Station, Texas, that's where I bought. When I lived in New Jersey, I bought properties in New Jersey. Now that I'm in San Antonio, that's where I buy properties. You know, partially, it made it so when I moved somewhere, a lot of what I thought about is what's the opportunity there. When I moved to San Antonio 6 years ago, more than almost any other factor, the real estate market here played a big role in the decision to come here. That worked out really well, I think, and hopefully it will for a long time. But having the ability to get some geographic diversification without having to buy whole properties in another state is pretty appealing to me. So, although right now I'm not putting a ton of money on any of these, because I'm not super comfortable with any of the platforms. And I don't mean to say that the 25,000 or the 15,000 or whatever I put on each site isn't a lot of money. I know for relative to my net worth, it's an amount that I'm comfortable that could be lost in its entirety, and it's not going to break me, right? And I think that I'm probably at a different stage in my investing career than most of the people that might take the time to watch this video. Um, and so I don't mean to. I know I say that sometimes, and somebody mentioned that to me. I don't mean to say that it's not a lot of money, because I'm sure to some people investing on here or watching these videos that it is. I just mean that I'm putting an amount that I'm still only putting an amount that I'm very comfortable with losing, because I think there is platform risk still. There's the risk, that it is all just a big scam. I'm getting more and more comfortable, especially with Ground Floor and with Lofty. Mogul, like I said, it's the newest one for me so far, so I'm not there yet. But over time, I expect to put more and more of my money on here. One, because I like that it's passive. I like that I can get some real geographic diversity. Um, Also like that, one of the things that's tough about being an agent that only works with investors, I try not to compete with my clients. And so it always, if a great deal comes up, it's going out to my client list before I'm going to buy it, because otherwise I think it makes it tough to trust, our team as agents. I think that uh, it's really better to send out all the great deals, and then so I end up buying some weird stuff and doing some different things. I built a shipping container home. If you go far enough back in my videos, you'll see that. That ended up turning out okay, but it is not that was another example of me trying to push to do something where I'm not directly competitive with clients. So I think that's the second group of people, experienced investors, that are just trying to allocate some money into other assets, and still looking for using your real estate knowledge to do your due diligence and hopefully get an outsized return. I really believe that's possible. I've only executed it a couple of times where I've bought and sold tokens. Some of them I've collected rent on plenty of times now. Not for a long period of time, but where I'm pretty comfortable, that they're just going to throw off some yield. Um, but the group that I think that could benefit from this the most are people who haven't invested yet, but it's not because they're capital constrained. And I run into a lot of these people. Some of them have been talking to me for a very long time. They have money. It might some of them just keep it all in cash, which is uh, you know terrifying to me. I think it is getting eroded um, by inflation, but it's what they're comfortable with. Some of them have just more traditional investments, but have wanted to get an allocation in real estate. But they have what a lot of people in the industry call analysis paralysis, or paralysis by analysis, depending on which book you read first. I think that both phrases get used a lot, and it depends on if you're a rich dad, poor dad person, or if you're a I can't think of who wrote the other one. Um, I actually like to say analysis paralysis more, but I think but both of them get used quite a bit. But if you're that person, if you've been looking for properties for 2 or 3 years, you read all the books, you're doing a lot of analysis, and you just can't seem to pull the trigger, I think this could really help your trigger pulling muscle. Put some chunk of money on, enough that it feels more than like you're playing, and just pick some properties and buy them, right? And it's like it's a small amount. It's going to help you just learn to just make a decision, right? And so part of the reason I think it will help is because you can do a much smaller amount than if you're just buying a property out there in real life. You're also limited, right? There's only like 150 options on this site, and on ground floor, I don't think you're really getting the same benefit because on there, what I'm doing anyway is just buying a whole bunch of everyone that they have on their site, and you can put as little as $10 into each one. So I think that's a different game on there. And on Mogul, it is, they only ever have a couple of properties for sale at a time. So, maybe it's not exercising that muscle enough. But for sure, if you haven't pulled the trigger on a property and you've been thinking about investing for a long time, you can find one property on here um, that I would expect you could find one that it meets the risk and return profile that you're comfortable with. Now, obviously, again, you want to do your due diligence on the property. You also want to look into the site. Make sure that you're comfortable with the risks of it just being a giant Ponzi scheme, which I don't believe that it is. But I also don't know. I also know you can't prove a negative, right? So it's not possible to prove that it isn't at this point in time. Um, or it'd be, it's extremely difficult anyway. I think in general that's a true rule, or that's a much much harder depending on what the negative is, I guess. But so there's no piece of evidence that you could give me that I'd be perfectly sure that you're not gonna they're not gonna run off with your money. But the longer that I have money on here, the more confident I will be in saying it's a spot that works out. In any case, I do have links below for all three of the sites. If you do decide to jump on there and put some money on, um, they all give you free money for doing something. Some of them it's just for signing up. Some of them you have to put a certain amount of money on within a certain time frame. Some of them, depending on what you do, they send me money too. That's fantastic. I actually think a couple viewers have done that already, which I didn't really expect because of the timing for some of them. Some of them you have to have within a short period of time from when you went to the site for the first time to actually invest on. Um, I thought that was kind of interesting because all my friends and family members took like a month to look at the sites, and then if they decided to put money on after that, the little cookie or whatever they use to do those referral links has gone away. But I digress. None of that's that important. I just thought it was kind of interesting to see that some people actually do go through and do that. But it is especially if you're one of the first group of people who I talked about and you're really capital constrained. I think I made. I think all of them gave me at least $50. Some of them, Mogul gave me an extra 250 on top of the first 50, but I had to invest at least 5,000 on there. Ground floor gave me an extra $200, but that was based on I think a $10,000 initial investment. But they give it to you for there's tiers, like you can get some extra for smaller. Lofty just gave me the $50 for the first token and then I put it on as a gift certificate and bought with. Um, but if you were somebody with just a little bit of money and you wanted to spread it around and get a little bit of free money from each one, I know when I first got started in investing, um, back in the early 2000s, is when you started seeing a lot of these different sites like new, completely online banks show up, and you'd get money for opening a checking account. You'd get money for different stuff like that. And when I was in college and that stuff was happening, I'd make an extra 50 or $100 here and there, and I was pretty happy about that. And so that's it's not what I would primarily be interested in and looking on these sites. I actually think more than anything, if you're interested in investing in real estate, these are a good learning tool because you can see a whole bunch of properties that were bought that nobody should have ever invested in, and then you can see some that are being run, I think, that are outperforming what they should as a property because they have some good management in play and smart plans and systems. And so Um, there's a lot that you can get out of it from that perspective. Um, but I really think the more I've thought about this, I think that who is it's going to help the most is the people who are just for whatever reason can't seem to pull the trigger. I have one friend who's wanted to be a real estate investor for well the full 20 years that I have. I tried to help him get into investing that far back. And he's just never really gotten into it. And I think, someone like that, there's always some reason that a deal doesn't work for him and he doesn't do it. And someone like that, I think, is the ideal person who could just start getting comfortable actually buying pieces of properties and like over time, and let me show you, there's not, I own one token in this, right? Like a 0.04% ownership interest in this one. I bought it because it was just super cheap. I think I bought four at the time, and I sold three of them right away because the price went back up. But so you can buy just little pieces of them, or this is probably the one. I own 3.5% of that one, or you can own a very small. I don't think I have any that are even close to. Where's Odom? Yeah, 1%. 0.5%. Like you're not taking the risk of buying a whole property, right? Yeah, that's the biggest one, but I think it's just it's one that I just think the price is way out of line with where it should be. Again, just because I'm buying that one doesn't mean that you should. Um, but in general, like, you can make these very small bets, but I think that it gets you used to looking at a property, deciding, is this something I'm comfortable investing in? Do I like this price? Let me put some money on. It's a couple of clicks, your money's on there. Within a few months, you'll probably know, was this a mistake or not? Definitely within a couple of years. You might get the idea you'll get all the updates as far as when tenants aren't paying, when there's construction that's needed. Um, there might come a time where you realize, like, I don't ever want to be the one that owns these outright. I'm glad that somebody else is handling this, right? And it could be, uh, that's fine. I mean, I think real estate investing is certainly not for everybody. I think it is a fantastic way to make money, and it's a fun way, and it's something I've always enjoyed doing. Um, but as I, spend time on sites like this, I have, I'm just really a nerd, right? Like I have a lot of fun digging into these properties, buying a couple tokens when they're cheap. It's just I don't know, so I think that it's something that I'm definitely learning about other markets too, markets I never would have invested in, uh, otherwise. And so I think that group of people, it could be good for as well. And so just, to get, just to sort of wrap it up, first group, like if you just don't have enough money to get started, but you're just trying to learn, I think it can, be good for that group of people. People like me who have been investing for a long time, but are looking to diversify their portfolio further. It's a way for me to just buy pieces of properties all over the place. And I think that I'll eventually do that when I'm comfortable enough that, um, with the sites and how they work, and feel really sure that I'm getting the returns that they're saying I am, and that I'm able to take my money off the platform, which so far I haven't had problems with any of those except for Landa. They still owe me a chunk of money that they've never sent back. But every other one, if they seem to work as far as that goes. Um, want to be comfortable with that. And then the third group, the people that have the money, have been thinking about investing, but just have never been able to pull the trigger. Like, if that's you, I mean, I think this is, finding one of these sites that matches your investment style, whether it's Lofty or Mogul or Ground Floor or Arrived or Arc 7. Hopefully it's not Landa. I really did not feel comfortable on there. Um, Stake or Staked, I don't know, something like that looked pretty interesting, although I haven't gotten on there yet. Because I just don't know enough about foreign real estate, which I think that was in Dubai. But, I think that all of those, I think if you look at all of them, there's probably one that would work for you. You'd be comfortable with the style, the way they present the properties. You'd feel, be able to do some due diligence and feel good that that's a property that or a site that you're comfortable investing on. I know a lot of people choose Arrived for that reason. I think I've read it's backed by Jeff Bezos. That makes them comfortable. Um, I don't love how high their fees are. I don't necessarily think they're picking the best properties. But that's my personal opinion, and that is, um, there's not the potential to make the types of returns that I'm hoping to make on these sites. But I think that if you're, a more conservative investor and you really like the fact that you trust that platform a little bit more, I could understand making that decision. That just wasn't the direction I went. But in any case, I think if you're, you should be able to find one that you're comfortable with, and then be able to just, like I said, flex that trigger pulling muscle a little bit. Get used to making that decision, putting a little bit of money at risk. Um, one of the things that's one of the things that took me the longest to realize when I started investing in real estate is like you can spend all the time in the world looking at properties, but until you start making offers in real life, or on here start buying little pieces of it, um, you're not really doing anything, right? Like it feels productive, but if you're not making offers, if you're not actually acquiring properties, it's not helping you in any way. And so that's really all I want to get to today. Just wanted to do, really make it clear like why I am spending the time on here, who I think that this could benefit. I am still really trying to find the ones that I can most confidently recommend to clients or potential clients that I just think are not quite ready to buy whole properties. But also, like I said, I mean, I think that I'm going to start shifting a decent amount of my capital onto some of these eventually. Once I really feel like they've proven themselves to me as far as the platforms go, and I'm not worried about, the, that's my biggest worry for all of them at this point is the platform risk. The fact, is this site going to be around in 5 years? If it goes down, what happens to my ownership interest in the properties? Um, I think that answer to that question is different for each platform. But I think that that's one of the reasons I like ground floor a lot. It's been around over 10 years now. They have a very strong track record as far as their average returns. They so that's one of the reasons I like it. That it's not the same as buying, you're buying pieces of loans on there, and it's a different risk profile. They are fix and flip loans and new construction, so that's a little bit different. Lofty, I think, has been around maybe 3 or 4 years now. Like I haven't been, on there nearly that long. I've just been on here about 3 months. But like if you look back at a lot of their older properties, most of the first batch and second and third batch of properties, all of the ones they refer to as their legacy properties, were really just trash. They were either not managed properly or they just picked very poorly. Yeah, the people that sold properties onto the platform were just trying to dump, troubled properties, maybe bad neighborhoods, places, tenants, poor renovations, all these sorts of things. I think that they've cleaned up a lot of that now. A lot of those properties are the ones that the tokens are very discounted for. And why there's so much opportunity today is because they had problems initially. And so, it's possible, like where Mogul is even newer, that I'm buying in properties on there that are going to have their own problems. And so, at least for the moment, I'm allocating less money onto there. And then, even once I really start to put a lot of money on some of these, I'll probably put more on ground floor than anything else. That'll be what I decide to do. Um, you know, uh, Probably more on Lofty too. Not quite as much, but as I get more comfortable with that site, and as more opportunities come up, because all the platforms are growing. Um, but yeah, I'll probably want to see Mogul have quite a bit of a track record before I'm putting a significant amount of capital on there. Um, More than anything, I was really just attracted to that first property that I put some money on. I think that they picked a good one there. Again, do your own due diligence on it. I could certainly have missed some stuff. It's a property in Houston, and I haven't worked in that market in over a decade. I've visited there a couple times in the last few years, and that's about it. So, it's something you want to really look at yourself. But yeah. So I see that platform risk as being the biggest risk in it, which is why it's going to take a little while for me to be super comfortable with some of them. But if the goal is just as much learning as it is making money, I think that opportunity is there, and I do think the opportunity to make money is there as well. I just wouldn't be, betting my net worth on it, trying to go all in on any one of them at this point in time. Just like, I don't think I'd ever put all my money on Bitcoin or something, right? Like, I mean, it's the same idea, right? It's a really unproven asset. It doesn't have a very long history. It's, you don't know what's going to happen to it in the future. I think I probably shouldn't have brought that up because I think that's a whole nother discussion. I do invest some in crypto, but I think that investing in real estate online is a safer bet. Um, provided your comfort, provided the platform remains, because you can really find out a lot about what that asset is in real life, and you can make, you know, like fact-based observations on what or estimations of what that value should be, not like just looking at a chart and being like, oh, it's gone up and down this much, and so it should go up and down this much again. So that's why I've always liked real estate. It's easy to sort of understand the intrinsic value, where the value comes from, what's going to make one property worth more than another, what makes one a safer investment than another. All those sorts of things are the things I'm really into about it, and why I put more money into real estate than anything else. I mean, even I use crypto as an example, but even like if you're investing in stocks, if you think that what Apple stock should actually sell for, right? Like you think you understand what that business should be valued at, and then what your little piece of it should be, you're either a business genius or you're fooling yourself, as far as I'm concerned, because they have such a complex business and they're having to value so many assets that it owns. And the same is true for almost any business, right? But when it comes to real estate, you've got at least, whatever entity you're buying on these platforms, you're just buying into something that owns one asset. And so I feel comfortable being able to say this asset should be worth X today. And then I can make a buy or sell decision based on that one easier decision. Now, real estate pricing isn't a science. And so, yeah, it's not perfect. But I feel like there are less variables, that go into what that property is worth than what a business is worth. And so that's why I'm very excited to be able to trade real estate like it's a stock, because I'm basically being allowed to trade something that I understand, at a much deeper fundamental level than the value of a business. And so it's why I think that there's some potential to really make money on these sites in the future. I'm not saying that the goal should be, to be day trading on here, or, trading as much as investing. Although so far, I think there's real opportunity to trade on here as well. I've talked about that a little bit in other videos. Now I've rambled for way too long. It's almost 2 a.m. Definitely just need to stop. Until next time, I am going to keep making mistakes, like always, which is why I say look into things yourself, so that you don't have to make mistakes part. You don't have to do that. You should still do the other part. All right. Have